hoodoo, and I foretell the future of you, viewer. I see great trials and tribulations in your past that have formed who you are today. I see great triumphs in your life, and that these also shape who you are. I see that you have loved ones that you hold close to you. I also see that you are watching YouTube. Specifically, the Boogeyman. Ooh. So, welcome to another edition of the Boogeyman. As you can tell from the intro, I am doing, in this video, psychics. I have mixed feelings about psychics, I really do. My opinion of them kind of goes quite a way back. I was kind of always fascinated by magicians and psychics and stuff like that as a child. And looking back at it, even when I was a young adult, I always kind of enjoyed the performative aspects of it, the theatrics. That's not the only element, and that's why I'm doing this video, because I do think there's certain elements that hold people back that are suggestive, deceptive, and in turn just flat out superstitious, overly superstitious. Now, the performative aspects of it is much like going to see a magician. When you go to see a magician, you have what's called a suspension of disbelief. No matter how skeptical you are, you're entertained because you can't explain what's going on in front of you, so you conclude it must be magic. Obviously, this is not the case. It's not magic. Very few magicians will pretend, even beyond the show, that it's actually true magic. Most magicians, Chris Angel, for example, are actually huge skeptics because they know the nature of the trick. They know what's behind the scenes. They know what's behind the curtain. They know the strings that are moving the puppetry of their show. And because of this, they understand the illusion. They understand, obviously, the performative aspects of the illusion and how this can actually be a benefit to people. This can entertain people. This can distract people. This can do the same things that a well-written story or a well-directed movie can do, which is to just entertain the audience, not necessarily give them anything deeper than that. Music does the same thing. Music gives you something that distracts you, that allows you to enjoy the performance. Psychics can do a certain similar thing to the idea presented in the movie Inception, which is to incept an idea, to kind of put a seed of an idea into somebody's head that they can actually become their own self-fulfilling prophecy. An example is if a psychic can tell that a woman has certain reservations about her relationship, then she could, the psychic that is, could potentially profess to see a breakup in the future or a strain on the relationship, and this seed will actually be set. The woman will go out looking for issues in the relationship that she already knew were there, but the psychic kind of brought to consciousness, and in this regard it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. Another trick that a lot of psychics use is mentalism. It's quite simple. It's cold reading, hot reading, or whatever you want to call it. It's looking at a person and really kind of taking the minutiae of their body language and reading what that means and what that might imply to their lives. It's a little bit of inductive and a little bit of deductive reasoning. This is why a lot of psychics enjoy the media of television, because television you can edit out the bad guesses. Now, this is from a article written on September 21st, 2007, putting psychics to the test. I can see it now. Second contestant number 1 turns to the audience and says, "Is there a John here?" "There is. Aha." Of course, this is a tongue-in-cheek way of pointing out one of the things that psychics use, which is vagaries, which can apply to many, many people. Things like, you are going to have trials and tribulations that define you. That obviously counts for a good 99.99% of the human race. So it's fair that if you throw it out as a psychic, most people will feel like you're talking about them. I contacted paranormal investigator Jim Underdown of the Center for Inquiry West in Hollywood, who said all the lights, cameras, and action of TV production could interfere with making any psychic test fair and honest. A TV production, this is a quote from Jim Underdown, a TV production is a bad testing environment. Unlike a science lab, TV sets have too many people to keep an eye on and too much activity to control. Who is making sure the psychic isn't getting a hint from the makeup girl or audience member? Also, producers have to edit, and an editor can make a psychic look better. We recorded everything in studio and compared it to what aired. They were substantially different in the accuracy. They're getting rid of the wrong guesses, Underdown said. Once you pull back the curtain and see how it's done, it's not impressive at all. This is one of the reasons why like I said, you see a lot of these psychics in the television media. It's very rare that you might see a shop here and there offering live psychic readings, but it's becoming less and less popular because it's so much easier just to simply edit out the bad guesses. Now, one of the reasons why people enjoy psychics is because they feed into the performative aspects of it. They're people who can see the future, and this fulfills a wish that we have as human beings who are future-seeking creatures. We wish to know pretty much everything that we can know, including the things that, paradoxically, we have no way of knowing. In this regard, it would be the future. In a lot of ways, the Bible speaks of the past in a way that we have no way of knowing. Except for maybe if you watch this. Recommend it. So we have psychics here operating in a way that kind of preys on people's will to know the future. These are why we have weathermen in the first place, why we have the Weather Channel. We like the idea of being able to say, okay, in the future, when I go to work tomorrow, what is the weather going to be like? Is it going to be nice? Is it going to be nasty? My cat is in the shot. Now, one of the ways psychics claim to work, and the key word is claim, is described in the Wikipedia entry for psychics. A psychic is a person who claims to use extrasensory perception, or ESP, to identify information hidden from the normal senses, or to manipulate objects mentally in a process known as psychokinesis. I'm not going to go too much into psychokinesis, because I don't feel like it's the majority of psychics. The word psychic is also an adjective to describe such abilities. Psychics purport to do a lot of things. They purport to tell the future. They purport to tell your present. They purport to tell your past to a degree. Most of the past and present has to do with what's called cold readings, which is essentially looking at people's body language, looking at how they react to certain open-ended questions that a lot of people ignore if they're hit or miss, because that's how the question usually works. I see a boyfriend. No? Oh, I see one in the near future, and then they move on. They move on in a way that you forget that they missed, and when they finally do hit, they'll see it in your body language that, oh my god, they've caught something. A lot of the ways that they can use this technique is by using absolute vagaries that apply to many, many, many people. Now, an example, I looked up a horoscope for myself for today. It says, tedium is harder to tolerate than usual today, because tedium is usually, oh, so pleasant. Your tastes are a little bit offbeat and unusual, and you're inclined to surprise people with what you communicate. People are surprising and actually have hidden talents. Oh no. And especially the courage you have to speak about certain subjects. You are quite magnetic now, but it's not a time to feel particularly certain about anything, because nothing can be doubted. We prefer open-ended situations just for now. Just for now. That's interesting. Later today, communications and interactions tend to be muddled and confusing at best because communication is always 100% accurate. It can be difficult to make sense of the signals you're receiving. Nobody ever gets miscommunicated. Work matters can be confused and communications break down. Muster up patience. In other words, this could apply to pretty much everybody. So the minute, if you're gullible to this, or if you're superstitious, let's use the word superstitious because I feel gullible is unfair in judgment. If you're superstitious, you're reading this and you're saying, oh my god, that's me. I'm a little bit quirky. I'm a little bit unusual compared to the status quo. We all are a little bit unusual compared to the status quo. That's what makes us individuals. So again, these are just vagaries that could apply to everybody. This is horoscopes, though. It's a little bit different than psychics. Psychics work with a little bit more personal nature. They observe. Like I said, is there a Rebecca in the audience? And they look around, and sure enough, somebody, it's like, oh my god. Or at least make some bodily gesture that proves that they are probably a Rebecca. Same thing with, I sense a lost uncle or brother. You be vague, chances are somebody's going to react to it. If you're really observant, you can spot this in an audience. Not really that surprising. Another bit of research that I found while looking up psychics. In 1988, the U.S. National Academy of Sciences, this is in 1988, so this has been around for a while, gave a report on the subject and concluded there is no, and this is a quote, no scientific justification from research conducted over a period of 130 years for the existence of parapsychological phenomena, aka psychics. Study attempted to repeat recently reported parapsychological experiments. I've heard of this. They basically said that they proved that people can be psychic. However, the interesting thing is, and the telling thing is, people couldn't repeat these studies. They did the exact same work, the exact same criteria, with the exact same controls in place and the exact same technologies to record it, and interestingly enough, came up with a completely different data. Yay, peer-reviewed. This is one of the reasons why critical thinking is important. A lot of people can make claims that are hearsay. The difficult thing about hearsay is that a lot of times it's coming from a source that's actually oftentimes emotionally attached or biased for you. A mother, a sister. But if it's not repeatable, if the data is not repeatable, that means they could just have had a good day. A good day for the sake of the psychics, where the psychic lucked out, made such a vagary that, yes, it came true for that person. You will have a nice day 50% of the time, or maybe even actually a good, healthy 80% of the time, hopefully. For most people, if you tell them that they're going to have a good day, they will have a good day. First off, you're telling them to have a good day, so they feel permission. They feel permission to be happy about things. It becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy, a little bit of a placebo, because they're, like I said, they're giving permission to be happy. And negatively, it can work the same way. You will have a tragedy in your life. If you say that to a group of 15 people, odds are a good percentage of the time there will be one person in that group that is true for. Another way that psychics prey on people is that if they start talking about negative things, and if you react to them in kind of a very closed-off, guarded way, they know they've hit the mark. And so they know that they can actually just kind of talk about it. And the interesting thing is they can talk about it in ways that are very difficult to substantiate. Things like, oh, I sense that a loved member, a family member, is sick. And then if you react to it, but don't worry, they'll be alive for a great long time. Or you might want to prepare for the worst. Things like that don't have any set date. It's not like psychics will rarely say things like, your Uncle Bob is going to die on Tuesday at 5 p.m. Or, don't worry, he's going to live another 10.5 years. There's a reason for that. Now, I don't want to just debunk psychics for the obvious reasons. We've all heard them. The information is way easy to get to. Just a simple Google search yielded this much data. This was 5 minutes of searching. Just 5 minutes of searching. And I got approximately 75 pages worth of material that clearly shows how psychics work, operate, and how they don't actually predict anything. How they work in vagaries, cold readings, how there's been countless studies that just flat out deny any evidence of this psychic phenomena. Now, this also kind of links up with another superstition that people have. Not only are people superstitious of psychics, that they do work, but people are also superstitious that psychic phenomena opens you up to the devil. As if the mountain goat guy in the volcano actually exists. Now, this relates to witchcraft. And again, there's the performative aspect of witchcraft, which is things like film. For example, if I snap my fingers, is because of the performative aspect of film. It can appear to be witchcraft. This leads people to say things like the Harry Potter movies are corrupting the youth because of their portrayal of superstitious witchcraft. Now, let's be critical of this. No witchcraft is actually done or encouraged in the movie Harry Potter unless your kid really thinks that movies are real. Now, if your child thinks movies are real, I hate to say it, you failed as a parent. You failed as a parent. But that being said, if the kid does try to walk through a wall to get to half, 3.5, whatever, terminal in a train stop, I say go for it. Let the kid try. He's going to make a pretty entertaining case of smashing into a wall and, well, hopefully not hurting himself. Actually, don't do that. Again, it's performative. It's entertaining because you suspend your disbelief. You for a moment, you're like, oh, this could happen. This is interesting. It's a what-if game. It's a mind... I almost said it was a mind... It's a thought experiment. And as a thought experiment, it's meant to only exist in the mind. Harry Potter, things like horror movies, tarot cards, psychic readings, they're all... The performative nature of them is that you believe them, in quotation marks. And this is the nature of suspension of disbelief. Just like when you watch Spider-Man, you suspend your disbelief that there's this red and blue costumed being that's just flying around and pew 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 pew. You don't actually believe that Spider-Man is real when you come out, unless maybe you're 5 years old, maybe you do. But you suspend your disbelief. That's the way psychics work. There's a lot of ways that you can debunk this performance. Some psychics use specific types of props. They use things like tarot cards or tea leaves or palms, because the prop actually helps you to separate yourself from the illusion. You're not looking to see the trickery in the person, you're looking to see the trickery in the prop. You're focused on that sort of thing. So, with that in mind, I actually wanted to kill two birds with one stone a little bit here by looking at witchcraft and psychics at the same time. One of the examples of things that people label witchcraft is tarot cards. And interestingly enough, they're used as a sort of psychic medium to tell the future. A little history on tarot cards: they actually started as playing cards in parlor games. I'm not quite sure what the game actually was. I might try to do a little bit of research, but I'd be very surprised to find anything. But essentially, they're playing cards that people started to use as props in their psychic performances, and it kind of stuck. A little while later, people like Aleister Crowley or Madame Blavatsky, however you pronounce her name, Blavatsky, started to use them as common props, and they really gained momentum as a sort of psychic tool, similar to kind of a Ouija board, but more focused on the future of things. So, without further ado, I got a deck of tarot cards. We're going to read my future for the day, see what happens, and we're also probably going to summon the devil by opening it up to witchcraft, as tarot cards potentially are. Should be fun. So, as I'm obsessed a little bit with, horror and H.P. Lovecraft and things like that, I decided, why not? Let's pick up the Necronomicon tarot cards. So we open them up. Let's see what we have here. We have a booklet that goes through everything. And we have the cards in here somewhere. Oh, there we go. There we go. There somewhere. Okay. Here we go. So I've already flipped through. I've already done this a few times. There's a couple different ways to do it. The book recommends a certain way. So let's look into it. Let's look at the layout. They have a specific layout for the past, a specific layout for the future. Let's see here. There's a little guide to how to read. Because I can read. Okay, so they have the card of fate here, which is just general, whatchamacallit, just ties everything together. The masters, which is the present, and the servants, which is the future. Okay. Okay, so these are organized in trumps and suits. So let's organize them that way. I don't remember how. Yeah, perfect. I've divided it myself. Okay. Those are the description cards. Now, which ones are the names and suits? I'm just going to do this randomly because face up and face down is actually significant. Okay, so let's see what my... Okay, so it's 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Woo, woo. Look at that. Look at that shuffle. Shuffle, shuffle. Shuffle, shuffle. Okay, so 1, 2, 3, dime, 4, 5. Okay, and then 1 for the fate. Okay, so let's see what my fate has in store for me today. So we'll start with this one, which is the 6 of Lovers. So you flip to the book, 6, and it's upright. So I will spare you the big long description of the card. It says it's for love, relationship, marriage, commitment, heartfelt pledge, union, amorous feelings, shared affection, loving partner, soulmate, trust, devotion. So essentially it's telling me I'm going to get laid. Card number 2 is the Hermit. Says wisdom, secrets revealed, a teacher, discipline, study, testing, examination, asceticism, denial of the flesh, mind over matter, discipline, spiritualized sexuality, whatever that means. So I'm going to get mine. Basically it's saying I'm going to be an ascetic, or ascetic, however you pronounce that. I'm going to be disciplined. So this card does not know me very well. Okay, third card. It is the Moon. I'm getting all positive cards. That's good, that's good, that's good. For now, anyways. So it is the Moon, which is hounds. Okay. Illusion, sterility. So I'm going to get laid while being disciplined, while being deceived. Hostile environment, traps, pitfalls, hidden enemies, deception, lies, concealment. Okay, so I'm going to find love by being disciplined and antisocial, also while being deceived. This doesn't really sound very cohesive. Okay, next I have the Fool, an upside down fool. Uh-oh. That means bad things. Credulity, heedlessness, folly, inadaptability to adapt, blindness, good advice, ignored, meaningless talk, impulsiveness, rashness, danger ahead. I'm going to find love while being disciplined and antisocial and deceived. But I will also be deceived? I will be too rash. Okay, so according to this, I will be too rash. Is this the future or the present? If it's the present, then it's already a little bit silly. Oh, this is the present. Okay, so apparently right now, at this moment, I am in love with somebody, disciplined and antisocial, deceived, and being rash. So I'm being disciplined and rash while falling in love and being deceived. I don't read. Okay. Say so, cards. The Empty Space. The Sun, which is an ironic card for being a current card because it's now currently 10:39 p.m. Apparently the Sun is in my present. Higher power, natural law, vital warmth, revelation, clarity, greatness. Okay, so I'll be disciplined and clear while being deceived and overly rash and in love. If you know what that means, you're a better person than I. Okay, so let's look at my future, shall we? First thing in my future is an upside down knave of swords. Knave of swords, upside down. A young woman or child with a shallow, careless outlook on life. So I'm apparently a young woman. In my future, there will be a young woman or a child with a shallow, careless outlook on life and a tendency to use others to her advantage by means of her cunning and trickery. In my future, I will find a young woman or child with a shallow, careless outlook on life and a tendency to use others to her advantage by means of cunning and trickery. Because none of those ever exist. Should be hard to find. This will obviously prove whether or not this is true. Her pettiness defeats her even when she succeeds in her design, since her victory accomplishes nothing of real worth. So, a petty woman. Petty people are really hard to find, so a petty woman should be hard to find. She's incapable of perceiving a larger purpose, but lives from day to day, exulting in her small triumphs beneath the surface. She is troubled and unfulfilled. An unfulfilled, petty child or woman. Those are very rare. In this case, I also have the King of Discs in my future. King of Discs upside down. So in my future, I will also have I'll have a petty woman, and this time I'll have a mature man. So a petty woman and a mature man. Apparently these cards are sexist. A mature man with a grasping, avaricious nature. A mature, greedy man who is jealous of the success and wealth of others. Because men are never greedy. He resents anyone who had done better in affairs or business or in the workplace, and expresses his resentment in mean and vulgar ways. A man jealous of other successes. That should be hard to find. Dull-witted, small-minded, meddling, seldom capable of higher principles or spiritual aspirations. He will never achieve great things because he wastes all his force on minor details. I feel like they're talking about me. Now, okay, next card is the Seven of Cups. So, petty woman, greedy man, who also sounds kind of petty and jealous. And this time we have positive. We have sort of positive. Unfulfilled promises, visions of success, passive victory, error, deception, initial advantages lost, anti-sentiment, vain imaginings, wishful thinking. So I'm not sure how those don't cancel each other out. Let's just say we have a passive victory. So I have a petty woman, greedy man, also kind of petty, a passive victory, a vision of success of some sort. So I will win something, and I will encounter a petty woman or child. Petty child's probably more likely, but either way. Greedy man. So my future looks pretty vague. Two of Wands. This time it's upright. So we have boldness, courage, resolution, determined will, personal authority, ambition, risk-taking. So we have a bold, courageous someone in my future. Passive success or deceit. A petty man, a petty greedy man, and a petty woman or child. But boldness. Okay. Second last. Knight of Wands. A young man who is hasty and rash, who acts quickly without thinking, sometimes in violent ways. Bold. His temper is explosive, and when it erupts, it scorches anyone who is near. If he does not immediately act, he falls into an indecisive state of mind that paralyzes him. It makes him see both sides of the question equally until at last he seizes on some inconsiderate course merely to free himself from doubt. So I have boldness, petty man, woman, or child, and I may succeed or be deceived. What day is not like that? Okay. So this is all tied together by, of the Seraph Hanged Man. So let's see what makes it all make sense. Abandonment, despair, involuntary suffering, frustration, opposition. I will find opposition. Just like every other day. Act of fate, humiliation, powerlessness, accident on water, overwhelmed. Okay, so unless I drown tomorrow or in the near vicinity of future, past or present. So, okay, so I'm presently in love with somebody. I'm disciplined presently. I'm disciplined. The card says so. I will be deceived, though. I will be oppressed. I will be fooled. I forget what that one was. But, anyways, this is my future. They're pretty cards. I've welcomed in the devil. Ooh. Okay, so in conclusion, as you can see, these cards were pretty vague. They didn't really offer much to describe any specifics, more like, I will sort of find these people that are sort of not nice. Sort of. They might also be a child. It doesn't really say much of anything. It keeps everything vague enough so that, you know, most days you can pretty much kind of have all kinds of things that relate to these cards. Not really that impressive. I also don't really feel like I'm overcome by the devil. No, just kidding. Still not there. You know, it's just cards, people. It's not going to really do much of anything. The performance is there. The artwork is there. They're pretty cards. I must say they did a good job of representing the various monsters of the H.P. Lovecraft mythos, which, if you don't know, is a fictional book about monsters. Not witchcraft, though. Just kind of, I don't know how to describe them. Just sci-fi monsters, I guess. You know, like aliens and stuff. Anyways, I don't feel like this really accomplished much. I don't regret getting those cards because they're H.P. Lovecraft cards, and how awesome is that? But on the other hand, I really don't feel like I've done much of anything. So, there you have it. I tried to be psychic. I failed. Apparently I wasn't reading from the ether quite well enough. Even though I had the tools to do so. Didn't really do much of anything. Kind of says a little bit of everything in each card. And I don't really feel possessed by the devil. So I feel this is... I mean, if you have any more suggestions that I could potentially experiment with, if you claim to be a psychic, comment below. I will contact you. We might be able to Skype some sort of thing that we can use to experiment with. Hopefully you'll have something more specific in mind than what these cards dealt with, because basically in the near future I will meet a petty woman, a petty man, be deceived. You know, it's just way too vague. I mean, I could literally just use this to describe anybody. I literally use any card to describe about any situation. So, if you are a psychic, and are brave enough to try to be debunked, I'll be honest about it. You know, if these cards said something to me, if they spoke specifically to me, I would have been honest about it. They really didn't. They really just had nothing but vagaries. I'm open to the ideas that psychics claim. I just really don't feel like any of the data has substantiated it. I also feel like some of the suggestions are really just that. They're suggestions. I have an example, a hypothetical story that never happened to me. Man and a woman dating. The man's kind of a jerk because he is clinically depressed, undiagnosed at the time. The woman goes to see a psychic. The psychic tells her that she's going to leave her boyfriend. Okay, that happens. She was about 19, 20 at the time. So, you know, that happens. Okay. So, psychic says this. Obviously, this is going to instill an idea in her head, and if the relationship isn't perfect, the relationship would have to be absolutely perfect for this idea not to fester. But the relationship was going downhill anyways. And she was also going to college in a different country, completely, very far away. And so, lo and behold, the psychic found this out and said, I see in your future a new relationship with somebody you meet overseas. Because that's just unfeasible. That if she leaves this crappy relationship, she's going to go with a good relationship with somebody else overseas that's right there. People don't do that. People don't break up and then get together with somebody that's present. Never. So yeah, do I feel like it deceived this hypothetical woman? Not really. It was probably a lot of ideas that she already had in her head when she went to the psychic, that the psychic really just reiterated to her and really made concrete and allowed her to actually fulfill her own prophecy. As in the subject of the psychic, the person being told the psychic reading, really had the tools to just have that be her future anyways by her own decisions. And the psychic basically gave her permission for it. Is that unhealthy? Not necessarily. But the thing is, you have to be careful with this because the suggestions could be, you know, what if her relationship was actually good at the time? What if she was in a loving relationship that could have lasted, but this seed of doubt that was planted really kind of helped fester something that didn't really deserve to be festered? I don't know. Who knows? It's a what-if scenario. It's a thought experiment. It's all about performance. You can say the same thing about literature, books, media. What suggestions do they give the populace? And does the populace actually enact them consciously, or are they subconsciously acting because of the seed of an idea that has been planted? You know what? Just be critical, people. These are stories that the psychics are telling you. It's an absolute story, and, you know, it should be treated as such. There's a wonderful movie that actually inspired the Boogeyman project called The Possession of Michael King that asks the question, what if a psychic told your loved one to do something very specific that led to their death? Did the psychic cause it? Maybe. It depends on really the gullibility of the subject, as in the person, and the intent of the psychic. Most psychics tend to just kind of bank on things like loss, and really try to console a lost loved one. Oh, I hear the voices of your dead brother, sister, child, whatever, and he's telling you not to worry. And in that regard, it becomes kind of therapeutic. It's an illusory therapy, but it has its places. But again, you have to be critical of it. If it stops and halts your grieving process, that is actually potentially very damaging. It could lead to a lot of prolonged grief that doesn't necessarily have to exist in you. So again, falls back to something I'm going to say again and again during all of these. Be critical, people. Use your brain. What does the data say? And I use the tarot cards as an example of data just to show how vague they are. You can read anything into these things. So with that being said, you might as well read nothing into them at all and just live your life. Don't look to the supernatural as a guide. Don't think of this as spooky necessarily either. Just if you want to go to a psychic reading to have fun, by all means. I had fun with it. I personally thought it was silly and fun and just like any other card game. In that regard, I'm not surprised that it actually started with these cards as a game. But, you know, ultimately it is just a game. It's a game, so have fun. Don't restrict yourself because of any superstitions you might have, but also don't turn off your critical thinking. It is the most important tool you have as a human being. Now, that being said, be good to each other, and I foresee that you might have a good day or a bad day. But either way, you should like or subscribe. I actually don't foresee anything. I only see a camera. I wish I could see you guys, but I just see a camera. Really, kitty? Really? You're just gonna chill? Okay, well, she wants a psychic reading. So, we'll just leave Mimsy here. Mimsy is a co-star. No, we can't do that. Come here, Mimsy. You're in the shot. Boom! Cut.